stage, please?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I'm asking Jose to remain on stage because we're about to have our second panel. And I'd also like to invite Ravish Majithia back on stage. Yeah, that's fine, thank you. Also, Pei Kang, Kian, Seah, and Doug Woodring, who will facilitate. Come on, gentlemen, come in, take a seat. Comfortable. Doug, there's for you.
Okay, so that was great. You know, one thing with the trash or plastic pollution or whatever that is something to remember is that every single piece of trash that became trash left someone's hand before it got thrown out. And that's very different than carbon. When it comes out of a smokestack or a car, you don't feel that touch to it. One of the things that Arthur used to say, and maybe they still do at MiniWiz, which I loved, which their slogan, which didn't come out today, was 100% non-virgin. And basically meaning everything they do is with recycled content. So Kian also mentioned something the other day when I was with him on a panel, and it didn't really come out today, but the issue is not necessarily single-use products, but it's single-life products. So when you design something for that single life. And when you think about convenience, because that came out today, this morning, just now, convenience kills. Convenience is killing us with single-life products. And so what are the challenges? You all have answers, and as hopefully you can see, that these answers today are pretty amazing and can inspire and really scale up a lot of what we talk about globally on this. So to each panelist, what are the one or two biggest log jams or scale problems you see in getting us into that second life and third life? Maybe we can start at the end.
You know, when you mentioned that the waste get passed through the hands of consumers, okay, I'm sure a lot of us, if we take off the business cap, we put back our, just being consumers. Every time we throw something away, every time, it's like, or even just the feeling of not finishing up your food. Okay, I think, there's a little bit of guilt in there. This is a latent need. Okay, and if, I think the challenge here is if you can harness this latent need, and allow, design around that so that we can be the consumers can be part of the recycling process. I think that could be quite a good challenge.
Jose?
In us is, as I mentioned before, that's why we incorporate those 4 key elements into our design process, because that is one of the main bottlenecks for recycling. Sorting, separating, the mixed material use increase the carbon footprint into every single project and every single process as well. Basically, that is, I think, is a basic bottleneck for us. And bottleneck in order to make a smoother process is just that the lack of consideration for that second life.
Ravish?
So, when we started Magnomer, one of the things we often, especially from investors and whatnot, was, oh, you're trying to solve a really important problem, but who's going to be the first mover in this space? And this is a question that still comes up every once in a while. So I think the biggest logjam is, for lack of a better term, leadership. And it's starting to happen. There are foundations, companies such as Coca-Cola are making the right moves and being leaders in this space. But we need to see more where large corporations, governments, foundations are leading the way and highlighting things that are working, so that we as startup entrepreneurs and as stakeholders can look at that solutions that do work and move towards them.
Well, that's a great point, and it's something that came up today about investors and what investors think about companies making this leadership move. And unfortunately, the stock markets, which have their quarterly reporting needs, often leave leadership not thinking in the long term of making these decisions, and the R&D needs to take a challenge and get engaged in this kind of topic. So I believe that's a very good point on leadership.
For me, it's the dilemma of recyclers. So do we hate recyclers or do we love recyclers? So what happened is that, I need a little bit time to explain more about this. Recyclers, I'm a recyclist, a lot of time recycler thinks about, what about the, what is the commercial yield, and then we can create jobs along the way, so on and so forth. Now, the government will look at recyclers in a different manner. All I see is environmental burden, the minus side of the equation that I mentioned just now. So what do we do, with the recyclers? And like what our earlier questions, that recyclers do not have many fancy slides, and most of the time have no chance or the airtime to speak for themselves. So that gives that standoff, that Mexican standoff, that gives you that dilemma of recyclers. So therefore, I think that recycling management becomes something that's very important. Yeah, the plus side, and then you have the negative side. How, what is the net effect? So positive, we do it. Negative, we don't do it. We keep thinking about hard structures. How do I innovate the product differently? How do I design the product differently? How do I come up with policies? What can I ban next in order to solve this problem? These are all the hard policies, the hard structures. And I fully support with that. But I'm just trying to say that that's also another soft forces that lies within this, which are the informal communities that just keep coming up, over and over and over again. So from, what Ashwin was saying earlier, in Malaysia, 23.06%, they're actually being recovered by informal communities. That's pretty good, considering that this is informal. The hard structure may not be even giving us that 24 or 25% that we see right now. So all I'm saying is that, we use the helicopter bandwidth, but think about the ground zero bandwidth. The recyclers truly know what are the inherent properties. So how are we going to bridge the gap? So sometimes fast is slow, sometimes slow is fast. That's what I'm saying.
Great. Okay, so all of you are innovators and designers and thinkers in this space because you've solved problems and you're solving them. So what's the next problem you're going to solve? Or what do you think on the challenge of getting second material back? It might not be from your company, but what do you see out there that is the next good big thing that you think could happen or should happen or is happening? Hey, Kang?
I think it is how we engage consumers today. So if you think of sustainability on the whole, if you have a zoom out view of that, sustainability, to most consumers, it feels like a burden. Okay, it feels like somebody telling you, hey, air conditioning, keep it above 25 degrees Celsius. It's like a mom preaching to you, It's an outside-in pressure. Now, having gone, being an innovator, having come from the design field, design and innovation, when you see a smart idea, it gives you a different feeling. You kind of look at it and say, wow. That changes everything. Okay, so the other side of us, if you get a chance to look at our portfolio, we also push a lot on innovation. It is not about taking away, but it is replacing with another value add. There's plenty of opportunities to do this, and I think consumers will appreciate that a lot. Okay, so we just need to connect it up. Maybe the feeling for sustainability can be an inside-out feeling. It can be a feeling of being impressed. Wow, this is amazing. And sustainability is just something that's on the side.
Great.
For us, was just thinking that, and I was just talking about that during our recess, and that is a very interesting point, the way that we do projects. And the part that excites me the most is, as an architect, you have to, well, we have a wide range of projects, but every project have a sense, have a story behind it. And most of the stories behind it have to be connected with local communities. And that's why when we do projects and we do recycling, or let's say we have an architecture project, a building or a pavilion, one of the analysis we do is we go to the local communities and see what kind of waste they have. So once you have and you sort that waste and see what kind of what kind of material you can use and put it back into our, let's call it the kitchen, so to see what can we do with this material and this waste, we engage the community. But that is the part, and that is the challenge that I want to see in the future, that it feels to me that it's very interesting to see the future of that. Because we know that most of the waste has been transported in massive amounts across the globe. And it's either we have, what is going to be like in the future, and if it continues this way, it's going to be just hotspots for like, okay, this is a huge amount of PET will be just locally sorted and locally oriented into specific regions. But if we continue this movement, and every project follows this kind of lead, into including a local analysis into every community and for every single project, that means that we decentralize this. And actually it could be the lead for a fastest scalable movement, where it would be part of the regulating process of every single region. That when you do a process, when you do a project, it could be a product, an architecture, or retail, or any kind of project, local sorting of waste is part of the specifications, part of the process. So then every community will be engaged, and we have certain norms to include that into any single, let's say, even manufacturing. Imagine in manufacturing this. If you want to open a company, let's see, that does the use recycle, post-recycle, or post-consumer recycled products, or material into their process, have to be locally sourced. That is, I think, is a big challenge for the future, and will I see that?
Ravish?
An opportunity that intrigues me personally, and maybe I'm just technically oriented, spend a lot of time in a lab. So, but chemical recycling is something that I am very excited about. I have nothing to do with that movement, but I see a whole bunch of startups, companies making some very interesting moves in the chemical recycling space, and that is something that I'm personally very intrigued by.
We will have questions after Kian, so get your hands ready and let's get the mic out for that.
For me, again, I think is the disposal behavior, the control versus uncontrolled. So as a consumer of plastic, yeah, whether individually, socially, as a social being, professionally, we have to start thinking